An Unholy Alliance by Dr. Michael Youssef. Is it too late? A few Western voices have, however, begun to sound the alarm. Former NBC television correspondent David Ben-Basat warned in an opinion piece, "What's unfolding in the UK should raise red flags across Europe." The political Islam creeping into decision-making centers through democratic votes represents a dangerous intersection of liberty and vulnerability. Britain, once a global leader in civil liberties in the fight against fascism, now faces a new test, a test of identity. The lingering question is whether the country will regain its footing or whether, within less than 3 decades, ethnic Britons will become a minority in their own homeland. Christopher Caldwell, senior fellow at the Claremont Institute, agrees. He warned, Europe imported a minority with a radical identity. In doing so, it forfeited its own identity and culture. Hugh Fitzgerald, author of Islamizing Europe, "Is the conquest inevitable?" writes, "More than 4 million Muslims, both migrants and native-born, now live in Britain. Muslims in Britain vote as a bloc. They are being elected to local councils, becoming mayors. Think of Sadiq Khan, mayor of London, and members of parliament. As their numbers inexorably rise due to continued immigration, legal and illegal, and to disparate fertility rates, so will their political power. Political Islam is on the march. What will be the impact of increasing Islamic political power in the UK and other Western nations?" Fitzgerald warns of Muslim political demands for more anti-Israel policies, more Muslim immigration, more no-go areas where non-Muslims and even police fear to tread, more wealth transferred from taxpayers to Islamist welfare recipients, more Sharia courts and Sharia influence, and more rewriting of history in textbooks to favor Islam and disparage the West. In fact, Fitzgerald observes that these dire effects could happen before we know it. It will not be necessary for Muslims to be a majority to have such an influence, he writes. In countries where Muslims are 20 to 30% of the population, their cohesion has allowed them to wield great power. Those numbers could be attained by 2040, but only if nothing is done to halt Muslim immigration and to increase deportation, beginning with all those migrants, overwhelmingly Muslims, who have been convicted of crimes. For many middle-class Britons, there's a growing sense that they are losing their culture and their children's lives are at risk. The frustration of British parents reached full boil after July 29th, 2024, when 17-year-old Axel Rudakubana went on a stabbing rampage at a children's party in Southport, England. Rudakubana, a British-born Muslim and the son of Rwandan immigrants, murdered 3 little girls, ages 6, 7 and 9, and left 6 other children and 2 adults critically wounded and traumatized for life. Police later found an Al-Qaeda manual among the killer's possessions. News of the attack triggered protests across England and Northern Ireland. In June 2025, a 38-year-old Ethiopian man named Hadush Kebatu reached the southeast shore of England by boat and claimed asylum in the United Kingdom. The British government took him to the Bell Hotel in Epping, where, over the objections of the townspeople and the town council, the government was housing male asylum seekers. Kebatu had only been on British soil for 7 days before he approached a 14-year-old girl in an Epping restaurant and forcibly tried to kiss her. He made similar approaches to other Epping girls. He was arrested and charged with sexual assault and enticing a minor to engage in sexual activity. Soon after Kebatu's arrest, more than 1,000 townspeople gathered at the hotel chanting "Save our kids." It was a spontaneous outpouring of fury directed at a government that placed leftist ideology ahead of children's safety. Within days, the town council voted unanimously to petition the Home Office to remove the asylum seekers from Epping. Far-left activists and agitators from Stand Up to Racism and the Socialist Workers' Party quickly mobilized, swarming into Epping to confront the townspeople. Incredibly, the police sided with the leftist activists and against the local people of Epping, with the confrontation turning into a full-blown riot and police only arrested. Local men. Dominic Green of the Free Press wrote, "Social media carried footage of police escorting the far-left outsiders to meet the local protesters and using dogs and nightsticks against the locals. Epping is now the front line of Britain's migrant crisis and the even more profound crisis of trust between a government and its people. Though national media outlets ignored the story, news of the parents' uprising in Epping spread on social media, with protests breaking out against asylum hotels in more than 20 cities across England and Scotland. Britain's Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who calls himself a socialist and a progressive, demanded that the Epping townspeople be given exemplary sentencing and claimed that the grassroots protests were coordinated by the far right. When Dominic Green interviewed the townspeople of Epping, he found them to be not at all as Keir Starmer described them. Green found one interviewee, a woman by the name of Kelly, to be a person of genuine compassion for refugees. Those who truly need help, she said, should be welcome. But the asylum seekers in Epping, she said, shouldn't be receiving British welfare because they had already passed through a number of safe countries to get to Britain. It's true. As Dominic Green reports, asylum seekers often travel through a number of European countries on their way to Great Britain, but criminal gangs of smugglers advertise in Africa, the Middle East and South Asia that Britain offers generous welfare benefits. In fact, the gangs get rich, smuggling Muslims to Britain, and the taxpayers then get stuck with the bill. Just as the Biden administration flung open the southern border of the United States for 4 years, the Labour government of Keir Starmer does nothing to prevent boats filled with asylum seekers, overwhelmingly Muslim men, from crossing the English Channel. Once they arrive, the Home Office buses them to communities across Great Britain. One Epping woman told Dominic Green, "I think this country is gone. There's no saving it now. I understand why this woman has lost hope. But as desperate as the situation may seem, many people in Great Britain, Europe and America are rising up and demanding protection for their children, protection for their communities and protection for their civilization. They are calling on their leaders to do the job they were elected to do. They demand that Western law be enforced to protect children and society from those who seek to impose Sharia law on us all. As long as people of good conscience have the courage to make their voices heard, there is still hope to save our civilization from cultural suicide."